Most men believe attraction is built with words, with explanations, with effort, reassurance, and emotional noise. They are wrong. The moments that stay with a woman the longest are rarely the things a man says, but the moments when he says nothing at all. Silence, when chosen consciously, is not absence. It is presence without desperation. It is strength without performance. This video is not about playing games. It is not about manipulation or emotional tricks. It is about the kind of silence that only comes from experience. From a man who has learned when to speak. And more importantly, when not to. Because there are silences that confuse. And there are silences that command respect. If you have ever wondered why some men are remembered long after they leave, why their absence feels heavier than others' attention, this is where the answer begins. Stay with me. Because what you are about to hear is not taught to men who are afraid to be alone. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where we will learn, explore, and share valuable lessons about love. In today's video, I will reveal to you 9 times of silence that make women wonder about you, a new perspective, helping you better understand the factors that determine a happy and sustainable relationship. Let's explore with me the secrets to building a strong and meaningful love. Before we start, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax. Let all your worries melt away, and let the messages in this video help you calm down and feel the most complete. Are you ready? Let's start now. Silence number 1, when she expects an explanation, and you choose stillness. There is a moment every man encounters sooner or later. A moment when a woman looks at him and waits. Not for flowers. Not for promises. But for an explanation. She wants words. She wants clarity. She wants reassurance that fits neatly into her expectations. And this is where most men fail. They rush to speak. They defend. They explain too much. They expose every thought, every insecurity, every fear, believing that transparency will save the connection. It doesn't. A man who has lived long enough learns something painful but true. Not every silence is avoidance. Some silences are power. When she expects an explanation and you choose stillness, you are not being cruel. You are being honest. You understand that words, once spoken in emotional tension, lose their value. You know that explaining yourself to someone who is not ready to hear you is an act of self-betrayal. So you pause. You don't argue with her emotions. You don't chase her understanding. You don't shrink yourself just to be accepted. You remain calm, not because you don't care, but because you care enough not to speak from weakness. And here is what happens next. Your silence creates a space. A psychological gap where her certainty begins to crack. She starts asking questions, not out loud, but internally. Why isn't he reacting like other men? Why isn't he trying to convince me? Why does he seem grounded? This is where attraction quietly shifts. A Stoic man does not fear being misunderstood in the short term, because he trusts his character in the long term. He knows that those who truly wish to understand him will do so without force. Silence, in this moment, communicates something words never could. I know who I am. I don't need to prove it. I will not negotiate my self-respect. And paradoxically, this restraint makes her more curious, not less. Because mystery is not created by manipulation. It is created when a man refuses to over-explain his worth. You see, women are not drawn to men who speak endlessly. They are drawn to men whose presence feels stable, even in uncertainty. Your silence tells her that your emotional center does not depend on her reaction. That you are not anchored to validation. That you stand firm, whether she understands you today or not. This is Stoic love. Not cold. Not distant, but disciplined. And long after the moment has passed, long after the conversation ends, that silence stays with her. Because some questions echo louder when no answer is forced. Silence number 2, after the argument ends, and you do not chase the last word. Every man who has loved deeply knows this moment. The voices have been raised. The tension has peaked. The argument has burned through the room and left behind a heavy, uncomfortable quiet. And now, there is an unspoken invitation. Say something. Fix it. Win the argument. Have the last word. Most men take the bait. They send another message. They add one more explanation. They push one more point, believing clarity will bring peace. It rarely does. A man shaped by experience understands something different. Not every battle is won by continuing to fight. So when the argument ends, he becomes silent. Not out of pride. Not to punish. But because he understands timing, restraint, and emotional gravity. This silence is not empty. It is deliberate. He knows that words spoken after emotional exhaustion do not heal, they reopen wounds. He knows that chasing resolution in the heat of conflict often turns understanding into submission. So he steps back. He allows the emotional dust to settle. He allows her nervous system to slow down. He allows himself to return to center. And in doing so, something unexpected happens. The absence of his voice becomes louder than his words ever were. She expects him to chase. She expects resistance, defense, justification. She expects noise. Instead, she meets stillness. And stillness is unsettling. Her mind, no longer occupied with reacting to his words, turns inward. Why didn't he fight harder? Why didn't he try to convince me? Does he care, or is he simply unshaken? This is where the Stoic man's strength reveals itself. He understands that emotional maturity is the ability to pause without collapsing. That love does not require constant reassurance. That respect is not earned by pleading. His silence says, I am willing to resolve this, but not at the cost of my dignity. I value peace more than control. I trust time more than impulse. And here is the truth few men accept. A woman often replays arguments not when a man keeps talking, but when he stops. Because silence gives her space to feel her own emotions without opposition. Without pressure. Without someone trying to reshape them. This does not push her away. It pulls her closer, internally. She begins to reflect. She begins to soften. She begins to see the situation without the noise of ego. A Stoic man knows that calm after conflict is more powerful than dominance during it. He is not afraid of temporary distance. He is not threatened by unresolved tension. Because he understands that true connection cannot be forced, it must return naturally. And when communication resumes, it does so on new ground. Not as adversaries. But as two people who survived the storm without losing themselves. That silence, the one after the argument, is often the moment she remembers most. Because it is rare. And rarity, more than intensity, is what makes a man unforgettable. Love is not always about brilliant moments, but often about patience, listening and accompanying in every small step. It is those simple things that nurture a lasting bond. That is also the reason why I believe that every experience in love is an opportunity for us to grow and become stronger. If you feel this, please click like as a way to spread positivity to more people. And if this is your first time visiting our channel, click subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any lessons. I also look forward to hearing your thoughts. What is the smallest but most meaningful thing you have ever realized in love? Leave a comment below, maybe your answer will become a source of inspiration for others. Now, let's continue our journey to explore deeper perspectives right away. Silence number 3, when she tests you, and you do not react immediately. A man who has lived, loved, and lost learns to recognize tests, not as games, but as signals. They rarely come directly. They arrive disguised as comments, pauses, shifts in tone. She might say something slightly provocative. She might pull away just enough to see if you follow. She might challenge your frame with doubt, comparison, or subtle disrespect. And in that moment, she is watching. Not for your words, but for your center. Most men react instantly. They rush to reassure. They overcorrect. They explain who they are, what they mean, what they feel, hoping to pass the test by proving themselves. They fail. Because reaction is not strength. Reaction is exposure. A man shaped by Stoic discipline does something different. He pauses. Not because he is confused. Not because he is offended. But because he understands that immediacy often reveals insecurity. So he allows silence to enter the space. He listens. Not only to her words, but to the intention beneath them. He observes his own emotional response without becoming it. He remains still. And this stillness shifts the dynamic instantly. She expects friction. She expects reassurance. She expects emotional movement. Instead, she meets composure. This silence does not escalate tension. It reframes it. Her test, designed to measure your emotional dependence, now reflects back to her as uncertainty. Why didn't that affect him? Why isn't he trying to prove himself? Is he that secure, or does he simply not care? Here is the truth. He cares, but he does not cling. A Stoic man knows that his value does not rise or fall with momentary approval. He understands that tests are not meant to be passed, but outgrown. Silence, in this moment, communicates authority without aggression. It says, "I heard you. I am not threatened. I will respond, if a response is necessary." And often, it isn't. Because when a woman tests and meets silence instead of compliance, something important happens. The test collapses. There is no leverage. No emotional hook. No visible insecurity to press against. She is left facing a man who cannot be rushed, rattled, or emotionally steered. This is deeply unsettling, and deeply attractive. Not because he is distant, but because he is self-contained. A Stoic man understands that attraction grows in the space between stimulus and response. That composure is more magnetic than intensity. That confidence is not loud, it is unmovable. Eventually, he may speak. But when he does, his words carry weight. They are measured. They are intentional. And because he did not react immediately, his response lands with clarity instead of desperation. That silence, the one where most men panic, is where his presence becomes undeniable. Because in a world of constant emotional noise, the man who can remain still becomes impossible to ignore. Silence number 4, when you leave at the right time, without explaining yourself. There comes a moment when staying costs more than leaving. Not because something dramatic happened. Not because words were exchanged or lines were crossed. But because, quietly, you feel yourself becoming smaller. A man who lacks experience ignores this moment. He stays longer than he should. He explains himself into exhaustion. He waits for permission to choose himself. A man shaped by life does the opposite. He leaves. Calmly, cleanly, without speeches. And he says nothing. This silence is misunderstood by those who fear abandonment. They call it avoidance. They call it emotional distance. They call it cold. But for a Stoic man, this silence is clarity. He understands that not every departure requires justification. That over-explaining your exit often comes from guilt, not integrity. That when your values are no longer respected, presence becomes self-betrayal. So he steps away. No dramatic goodbye. No long message explaining how he feels. No attempt to control how he will be perceived. And this is precisely what makes it unforgettable. Because she expected closure. She expected reassurance. She expected words that would soften the loss. Instead, she is left with a question. Why did he leave so quietly? Why didn't he fight for this? Why does it feel like he already made peace with the decision? Here is what most people do not understand. A Stoic man does not leave impulsively. He leaves after observing. After tolerating. After giving more than he received without complaint. By the time he goes silent and walks away, the decision was made long ago, internally. That is why there is no chaos in his departure. No anger. No bitterness. Only resolve. His silence communicates something words never could. I know when to go. I do not abandon myself to stay desired. I value alignment more than attachment. And paradoxically, this restraint often makes her feel the loss more deeply. Because there is no argument to replay. No explanation to dissect. No emotional mess to distract from the truth. Only absence. And absence has weight. She begins to remember the moments he was present. The steadiness. The way he didn't demand attention. The way he didn't cling. And now, without warning, that presence is gone. A Stoic man understands that leaving at the right time is not punishment. It is self-respect in motion. He does not leave to be missed. But he is. Because strength that does not announce itself lingers far longer than strength that begs to be seen. That silence, the one where you walk away without explanation, is not weakness. It is the quiet confidence of a man who knows that staying where he is not valued would cost him far more than being alone. Silence number 5, when she pulls away, and you do not chase. There is a moment that reveals a man's true relationship with himself. She becomes distant. Her messages shorten. Her warmth cools. The space between you grows, not dramatically, but noticeably. Most men feel it immediately. And fear rushes in. They chase. They ask questions that sound like accusations. They offer more attention than was ever asked for. They try to restore closeness by sacrificing their composure. A man who has walked through loss recognizes this moment differently. He does not panic. Because he understands a hard truth. Closeness that must be chased was already leaving. So he becomes still. Not to manipulate. Not to provoke longing. But because he refuses to abandon himself for emotional certainty. This silence is not withdrawal, it is containment. He notices the shift, but he does not pursue it. He allows her distance to exist without resistance. He keeps living his life with the same rhythm, the same grounded presence. And this changes everything. She expects pursuit. She expects questions. She expects emotional proof that she still holds power. Instead, she meets steadiness. Her distance, meant to create imbalance, meets a man who does not lean. And suddenly, the dynamic reverses. Why isn't he chasing? Why does he seem unchanged? Did I miscalculate his attachment? Here is the Stoic truth. A man who chases abandonment teaches a woman that withdrawal controls him. A man who remains calm teaches her that connection must be mutual. Or it does not exist. His silence says, I notice your absence. I do not fear it. I will not chase what chooses to step away. This is not indifference. It is self-trust. He understands that real desire cannot be negotiated. That attention given under pressure loses its value. That love, to remain alive, must be free. And something profound happens when a woman pulls away and meets no pursuit. She feels the weight of her own distance. There is no resistance to push against. No emotional chaos to justify her withdrawal. Only space. And space invites reflection. She begins to question not him, but herself. Am I pulling away because I want to? Or because I expected him to chase? A Stoic man accepts the outcome either way. If she returns, it is by choice, not pressure. If she doesn't, he remains intact. Because his worth was never located in her attention. This is the silence most men fear. And the one that reveals the strongest character. Not loud. Not dramatic. But unshaken. And that composure. That refusal to chase. Is often what makes a woman remember a man long after she thought she was done with him. Silence number 6, when you have said enough, and you refuse to repeat yourself. There is a quiet line every man must learn to draw. It is not drawn with anger. It is not drawn with ultimatums. It is drawn with restraint. You speak once. Clearly. Calmly. Without emotional excess. And then, you stop. Most men believe repetition is persuasion. They believe that saying something again, louder or softer, will finally make it understood. It won't. A man with experience knows this. When something is ignored the first time, repeating it does not increase respect, it erodes it. So when he has said enough, he becomes silent. Not because he has nothing more to say. But because his words were already complete. This silence is a boundary. He does not chase acknowledgement. He does not demand agreement. He does not repackage his truth to make it easier to swallow. He allows his words to stand, or fall, on their own. And this is where power shifts. She expected persistence. She expected reminders. She expected emotional follow-ups that signal uncertainty. Instead, she meets finality. Not hostility. Not coldness. But closure. His silence communicates. I meant what I said. I will not dilute my values to be heard. I trust you to decide what to do with this. And this unsettles her. Because now the responsibility is hers. There is no noise to hide behind. No endless conversation to blur the issue. No emotional labor from him to carry the weight. Only choice. A Stoic man understands that boundaries spoken once and honored silently are far stronger than boundaries defended endlessly. He knows that repetition often reveals fear, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, fear of standing alone. So he does neither. He stands still. And something interesting happens in the absence of repetition. She replays his words. Not because he kept saying them. But because he didn't. Silence gives his message gravity. It allows it to echo. It forces reflection instead of reaction. And whether she respects it or not, the dynamic has changed. Because a man who refuses to repeat himself is a man who knows that his words are not negotiable. He is not trying to control her response. He is controlling his integrity. This is Stoic love in its clearest form. Not persuasion. Not pressure. But presence backed by restraint. And long after the conversation ends. Long after emotions cool. That silence remains. Not as absence. But as a line that cannot be crossed without consequence. Love is a great lesson in maturity. It challenges us with fragility, teaches us patience through waiting, and gives us strength after being hurt. Here, I don't just tell stories for you to listen to, but for you to reflect on yourself and find your own lessons. If you find it valuable, please click like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on the shares that can change the way you look at love. Now, get ready with me, because the rest will have a lot more depth waiting for you. Silence number 7, when you master your emotions, and choose not to display them. There is a common misunderstanding about emotional strength. People believe it is about suppression. About pretending not to feel. About becoming cold enough that nothing touches you. That is not mastery. A man who has lived knows this. You do not master emotions by denying them, but by refusing to be ruled by them. So when emotion rises, anger, jealousy, disappointment, fear, he does not broadcast it. He becomes silent. Not because he is disconnected, but because he is present enough to pause. Most men display emotion the moment they feel it. Their faces tighten. Their voices change. Their energy leaks. And in doing so, they hand control to the situation. A Stoic man does not. He feels everything. But he reveals nothing until he understands it. This silence is discipline. He does not react to provocation. He does not mirror chaos. He does not seek relief through expression. Instead, he breathes. He observes. He allows the emotional wave to pass without becoming it. And this is where true strength lives. Because emotional restraint is not weakness. It is command. She notices it immediately. She expects emotion to surface. She expects tension, defensiveness, visible disturbance. Instead, she meets calm. And calm has gravity. Her words, meant to provoke reaction, find no surface to cling to. Her emotions, seeking resonance, find no echo. This does not make her feel ignored. It makes her feel seen. Without being indulged. A man who controls his emotions communicates something rare. I am safe. I am stable. I am not dangerous when uncomfortable. This is deeply attractive, whether consciously or not. Because attraction does not come from volatility. It comes from emotional reliability. A Stoic man understands that the loud display of emotion often comes from a desire to be validated. He does not need that. His silence says, I will process this internally. I do not need you to carry my emotions for me. I choose clarity over release. And when he does speak, it is measured. It is intentional. It is free of emotional residue. This makes his words heavier. Because they are no longer driven by impulse. In relationships, this silence creates trust. Not the loud, dramatic kind. But the quiet kind that allows a woman to relax her nervous system. Because she senses that this man will not explode. Will not collapse. Will not emotionally burden her when things get difficult. He is not numb. He is anchored. And that anchor, that calm center, is what makes a man unforgettable. Because in a world addicted to emotional display, the man who can remain silent while feeling deeply becomes rare. And rarity is power. Silence number 8, after intimacy, when you do not rush to possess or define. Intimacy has a strange effect on most men. After closeness, emotional or physical, they rush to secure it. They label. They clarify. They seek reassurance that what just happened means something. That it will continue. That it belongs to them now. A man who has lived understands something different. Intimacy does not need to be seized. It needs to be respected. So after the moment passes, he becomes quiet. Not distant. Not cold. but unhurried. This silence is not emptiness, it is trust. He does not immediately ask where this is going. He does not pressure the moment into definition. He does not turn closeness into ownership. He lets the experience breathe. And this is where the dynamic shifts. She expects him to lean in harder. To seek validation. To attach meaning quickly. Instead, she meets composure. His calm unsettles her, not because it lacks care, but because it lacks need. And need, after intimacy, is often mistaken for love. A Stoic man knows better. He understands that intimacy creates vulnerability. And vulnerability, when rushed, turns into fear. So he gives space, not to withdraw, but to allow integration. His silence communicates. I value what happened. I am not trying to trap it. I am secure enough to let it unfold naturally. And this is powerful. Because when a man does not rush to possess, a woman begins to wonder what she means to him. Not in anxiety, but in reflection. Why isn't he claiming this moment? Why doesn't he need immediate certainty? Why does he feel grounded instead of attached? This silence creates emotional polarity. Not distance, but depth. It allows her to feel her own desire without pressure. To revisit the intimacy internally, rather than defend against it. A Stoic man understands that what is truly meaningful does not require immediate confirmation. He does not measure connection by how fast it becomes exclusive. He measures it by how it grows when left unforced. And if intimacy was real, silence does not weaken it. It strengthens it. Because what is chosen freely is far more powerful than what is claimed too soon. Eventually, words may come. Commitment may come. Definition may come. But when they do, they arrive without tension. Without fear. Without the need to convince. That silence, the one after intimacy, is not hesitation. It is reverence. And reverence, more than urgency, is what makes a woman feel truly seen. Silence number 9, when you know your worth, and no longer need to speak. There comes a stage in a man's life when words lose their urgency. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he no longer needs to be understood by everyone. This silence is not learned from books. It is earned through disappointment, loss, patience, and self-confrontation. It arrives when a man finally understands his worth. Before this stage, he explained himself constantly. He defended his intentions. He tried to be seen, validated, chosen. After this stage, he stops. Not out of bitterness. Not out of arrogance. But out of clarity. A Stoic man knows that his value is not increased by persuasion. That those who wish to understand him will do so through consistency, not speeches. So he becomes quiet. He lets his actions speak. He lets his boundaries remain firm without announcement. He lets people reveal whether they align with him or not. And this silence is unmistakable. It carries no tension. No resentment. No need to convince. It simply exists. She feels it immediately. Because this silence is different from all the others. It does not seek a reaction. It does not create mystery. It does not wait to be noticed. It stands complete. A woman encountering this silence senses something rare. This man is not waiting for approval. He is not trying to be chosen. He has already chosen himself. And this changes everything. Because now, interaction with him is no longer about control or validation. It is about alignment. His silence says, I know who I am. I am at peace with being misunderstood. I will not shrink to be accepted. This is the silence of inner sovereignty. He does not argue when disrespected, he disengages. He does not chase when uncertain, he observes. He does not speak to fill space, he speaks only when it adds meaning. And when he does speak, people listen. Because silence has taught him precision. A Stoic man understands that the strongest presence in the room is often the man who needs nothing from it. Not attention. Not reassurance. Not dominance. Just alignment. This is why this silence lingers longest. Not because it manipulates, but because it reflects something most people have not yet found in themselves. Wholeness. And a man who is whole does not need to announce his worth. It is felt. Conclusion. In the end, it is not your words that define you. It is the spaces where you chose not to speak. These 9 silences are not strategies. They are not techniques designed to control emotions or manipulate desire. They are reflections of a man who has stopped living reactively, and started living deliberately. A Stoic man does not fear silence because he is not afraid of himself. He has sat alone with disappointment. He has faced rejection without collapsing. He has learned that self-respect is quieter than ego, but infinitely stronger. Each silence you have heard is a form of self-mastery. Silence when explanation would cheapen your truth. Silence when conflict would pull you away from your center. Silence when tests reveal insecurity, yours or hers. Silence when leaving is an act of self-preservation. Silence when chasing would cost you dignity. Silence when repeating yourself would weaken your boundary. Silence when emotions rise but do not deserve control. Silence when intimacy is honored, not seized. And finally, silence when you know your worth so deeply that words become unnecessary. Together, these silences form a presence. A presence that does not demand attention. A presence that does not beg to be understood. A presence that invites respect, without asking for it. Women feel this presence not because it is loud, but because it is rare. In a world addicted to noise, the man who can remain still becomes a point of gravity. People lean toward him without knowing why. They remember him not for what he said, but for how he made them feel when he said nothing at all. This is not emotional distance. It is emotional maturity. And when you reach this place, love stops being a battlefield. It becomes a mirror. Those who align with you stay. Those who do not fall away, without drama. And you remain. Calm. Grounded. Whole. That is the quiet power of a man who has nothing left to prove, and everything to live. So today's video has ended. Thank you for taking the time to watch it all. I hope you have learned valuable lessons and these shares will help you on your love journey. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive more interesting content in the future. I'm very grateful for your support and see you again in the next videos. Wishing you all love and happiness.